everyone, it's Laura, and in this video I am going to be talking about looking for love in all the haunted places. Now this is a book I've never heard of before, but when I went to the used book superstore in Burlington, Mass with my mom, I found it on the shelf. I was automatically drawn to the cover. In that store they have a lot of rows of shelves, just spines only, but they did have some on display. This was one that was on display on a shelf, and I was drawn to it, and I bought it, and I was pleasantly surprised. That being said, there's a lot that I liked about the book and a lot that I did not like about the book. So basically, in this book, the main character's name is Lucky Heart, and how to explain this? She has a form of ESP as far as she's concerned, where she makes eye contact with you. She's able to do a reading about certain intrinsic qualities and core beliefs of your character. And so she has, since she was young and learned about the system in school, basically created something similar to Sherlock Holmes. And she has a mind palace where she also has an eidetic memory. So she basically remembers everything. So she is able to store a reading for anyone she's ever met in her life in her mind palace. And she's able to go in and pull it out and review it at will. So she has that going on. And so obviously this ability has caused a lot of issues in her life. She does not get along with her family. She's currently no contact with all of them, because she was basically treated like trash, in her words, and her brother straight up does not believe that she has any such ability, and that was more of a ploy for attention. And so she, in this book, starts off in an interview where she is applying to be the on-air talent of a show called The Caretaker. And that is because The Caretaker is a show where a person goes and stays at a quote-unquote haunted house, and they're supposed to stay there for 30 days and kind of document what happens. She is actually the fourth caretaker. The first three did not last more than 3 days each. And so she is interested in this role because her goals and ultimate dream is to use her abilities as kind of an investigator of these places. And she's done her own investigations, and she's looked for financial backers in the past, but none of them are interested without having a credible resume. So she's hoping that this project will give her legitimacy and she can prove her abilities on the show and hopefully launch her career and interest financial backers in her own investigations. Up until this point, she has just been a nanny, and any spare money she has, she buys her own equipment for her own investigations she takes on in her free time. She's also been trying to apply to a grad school that actually has a parapsychology program, a master's program, but she has been denied twice so far. So that is kind of what led her to go this unusual route and agreeing to be on this program. And she doesn't go in at first in the interview claiming to have any powers or ESP. She's hoping that once she gets the gig and she starts filming, then she can reveal it. She thinks that they would consider her a quack ahead of time and not give her the role if she tried to disclose her powers beforehand. So she's there, and the only thing that makes her kind of different in the interview is she wears sunglasses, because it helps dampen any potential readings. Because if she didn't wear the sunglasses, anytime she made eye contact with anyone new, she would get a reading. And if she has too much of those in a row, she gets overloaded and overwhelmed. And she's actually been bedridden before in her past based on it. So they ask her about her sunglasses, and she just kind of coyly tries to play it off as, well, I'll tell you why if you play your cards right type thing. So it turns out that the house itself is not like haunted in the traditional sense, because she asks in the interview, you know, well, what do you claim? Does it have ghosts? Because she's straight up that she's willing to basically investigate any paranormal phenomenon except for ghosts. You don't find out until much later why, but ghosts are a no-no, and they say no. And so she's under the belief that the house is kind of sentient and has come to life somehow on its own. And they also don't tell her what happened to the previous 3 caretakers for a lot of it, because they don't want that to color her experiences or her expectations or anything that way. So this book is her moving into the house and nobody on the production team basically believing her when she says that she'll last the entire time. They just say, oh, just wait. We'll see if you're still here tomorrow morning, because none of the production crew stays after sundown. Sundown to sunup is apparently when the house is most active, and everyone but her skedaddles. And the production crew is very tight, and it's the owner of the house, and he is also the owner of the production company that is funding this program. There is, I guess they're producers. I don't exactly know their full roles, but there's 3. So Xander is the owner of the house. Then there is Steven, Georgia, and Chase. And then there's kind of the host of the program who performs her interviews, and his name is Maverick. And he is an on-air talent known for in the paranormal world, he's known. He is very well regarded. He does interviews with potential mediums and psychics, and he interviews people who have had experiences with the paranormal and that type of thing. And she has admired him for a long time. And a romance sparks between the 2 of them in this book. So I've always been curious since I was a child about the paranormal. And while I'm a skeptic, I'm more along the lines of I want to believe, but I don't necessarily believe. I don't believe everyone who claims to have empath abilities or a medium that they're legit. I'm highly skeptical, but I would like to think that stuff like that exists. So Ghost Whisperer, that TV show with Jennifer Love Hewitt, I ate that up, and I've watched my fair share of ghost hunter type shows, and I'm still skeptical, but this was kind of right up my alley of reading a fictional book that has something to kind of do with that. And on that note, so it was really interesting. I like kind of the buildup of the house and them trying to figure out what's going on. I find her powers interesting, and I like a lot of what this book does. But then I also have issues too, because unexpectedly, she also, at one point, it comes out that she's ace, and she's not aromantic, she's just asexual. So they kind of go into that, and I will have the disclaimer that I am not a person of color, which she is. She's Black. So is the male lead Maverick. So I don't know how they deal with any of that aspect. I also am not ace. So what I think might be good representation might not from an actual ace person. But I found it interesting and kind of along the lines of what I do know of the ace community. I have listened to different people and quite a few podcasts from the ace couple on YouTube. So I am somewhat familiar with the spectrum of things. And so I did find it interesting. And they did go into it quite a bit in this book, especially once she kind of gets into a romance with Maverick and trying to figure out if he's interested, because she has limitations about what she's interested in physically, and he doesn't want to push her because he's under a misconstrued idea of what it means to be ace, and he doesn't want to make her uncomfortable because he's interested in her. And so there are a lot of discussions like that that I find really interesting. And there was even, I had a little tab because I thought it was interesting. At one point, there was, with Georgia, one of the people on the production team, where Lucky says, "I wish I understood lust and sexual attraction outside of theory." And Georgia says, "You're definitely missing out." And Lucky responds, "I don't think I am." She disagreed with a head shake. She couldn't miss something she didn't experience in the first place. To me, it's like watching everyone enjoy eating chocolate cake, but I'm deathly allergic to chocolate and wheat. I'll be fine without that specific cake. There are countless other types and substitutions I can try so I can find something that I like if I want to. I just wonder about that one from time to time because it's everywhere. So, and then the response of Georgia is, "Well, if that's the case, I wouldn't. You're ace and nerdy, babes. You got to find a way to make that work for you." So I just found that a really interesting analogy. Again, everything with the disclaimer, I don't want to offend any ace people if this is wildly off base, but it was completely unexpected because it's not mentioned anywhere on the back or anything that, well, the main character, but one of the main people in the love romance is ace in this. So that was a pleasant surprise. On the other hand, I was confused by another aspect of the character Lucky, because I don't know if she's also on the autism spectrum somewhere, because a lot of her behavior comes off like she's masking, because she doesn't believe people, she doesn't seem to pick up a lot of social cues, but she had to learn from her hard childhood where she didn't have any friends, in college where she didn't get along with a lot of people. She learned a way to endear herself and get along with others, but it's not her true personality. And people have to verbally tell her a lot of times what they're thinking because she doesn't pick up on it or assumes incorrectly. And nowhere does it mention that, but at least from my, again, I am not on the autism spectrum whatsoever, but it seems like there's classic behavior that I've come to learn is often familiar with that. And she just, there are conversations, especially between her and Maverick, where it seems like they're talking at each other and it's not a back and forth conversation. It's like they're having two different conversations. And I understand everything from Maverick's point of view, and I don't understand how she's interpreting things, and sometimes how she responds seems wildly off base to me. But it's never broached in the book that she's on the spectrum. So I don't know if that's unintentional or if I'm reading too much in that way, but it just seemed very odd to me because I read other romances and I never have a hard time necessarily following that aspect, especially. And at this point, some of the time, I just almost thought that as much as I like the two characters, I don't think they fit well together. And yet they were both intent on being with the other person. But I definitely, there were some conversations that I reread between the two of them 2 or 3 times. I didn't understand how Maverick could say this and then Lucky came back with this reply, and they just did not seem to be part of the same conversation. And likewise, sometimes Maverick would say something after Lucky made a comment, and it made no sense to me. So that kind of docked my enjoyment of it. And then likewise, as the book went on and her investigation in the house went on, I don't fully understand everything that happened on that side of the plot, because she does, I want to be as vague as possible, she does eventually kind of go through some different paranormal experiences in the book. And then some of them she claims didn't happen the same way they happened for other caretakers because of her abilities, and her ability kind of canceled things out. And that I just didn't understand how her ability, I thought I understood the basics of her ability, and then I don't understand how her ability could work with that. And then they kind of claim that the act of sleeping in the house gives you a connection to the house, and that's why things ramp up, is no one wants to stay there and potentially sleep there overnight that doesn't have to. And then, I don't know, there's just different parts where she says, well, they have to leave. She wants to break the connection, or things will happen and it will break the connection with the house, but I don't understand why they need to break the connection with the house for certain other things to happen. This is very towards the end of the book, so I am trying to be as vague as possible, but try and still explain my frustration. So it's just trying to suspend as much disbelief as I can, believe in her ability, and try to do my best to understand what the limits of her ability are based on what she's said in the book. I just don't understand exactly how her powers clash with the house or how things work. So while in theory I would like to give this book a 4, just because of the issues with the relationship and talking at each other, I just don't understand a lot of decisions that they make with that relationship and how they have the conversations and come to certain conclusions that they do when it doesn't seem clear to me on what they're talking about. And then the actual, her abilities and the actual paranormal house, I don't follow along with all of that. I'm going to bump it down and give this book a 3. It was an enjoyable, fast read, but I did, like I said, get bogged down in some of those conversations where I had to go back and read again a few times trying to see what I missed, and I still don't understand. I just eventually kind of gave up, went with it, and everything. So while I liked the idea of the plot and I liked a lot of the representation that was given in this book, that seemed, at least as far as I'm aware in my limited knowledge of not being a POC and not being on the autism spectrum, not being on the ACE spectrum, it seemed like pretty good representation for different things, but I just, the negatives kind of bogged me down a little more than I wish they did. So I will be unhauling this book, and I'm not sad that I read it, but it wasn't as great as I had hoped it would be. So I think that's all I have to say about this book, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.